shake it for me. It's a wonderful night. Come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night. You gotta shake it for me. It's a wonderful night. Come on and break it on down.
Welcome, I am the Kaiju no Kami. Tonight, Halloween month continues as I take a look at what is considered the darkest Kamen Rider series of all time, Kamen Rider Black. Unlike Super Sentai, the Kamen Rider series had not been running consistently throughout the 80s. In fact, Kamen Rider Super 1 was the only TV series before Black, which ended in October of 1981. Thus, it would take 6 more years from that point forward before a new series was released. No reasons as to why seem to have been reported, but it could possibly have to do with the success of the Metal Heroes franchise that began a few months after Super 1. Nevertheless, Kamen Rider Black brought the franchise back to television, and in a big way. To start, the series was set in its own universe, having nothing to do with any of the Rider series that preceded it. Thus, none of the previous Kamen Riders make an appearance, which hadn't been done since 1974's Amazon. However, in that series, Amazon is named a Kamen Rider by a child who knows of the other Riders, setting the show in the same universe as those that came before him. This was not the case in Black's universe, which set up a far more sinister world, as Black is essentially on his own without any backup whatsoever. If he loses, it's over. Like any superhero, is Black truly alone? Let's take a look at the heroes to find out. The hero and his companions. If you are familiar with the Kamen Rider franchise, you may know that usually the Kamen Rider has additional riders or heroes that are Rider equivalent characters to help take on the evils of the world, especially if you've watched the Heisei Neo Heisei eras. Well, in Kamen Rider Black, that is not the case. Like the Riders before him, our hero Minami Kotaro, played by Tetsuo Kurata, has been turned into a cyborg by the evil organization he fights against. Kotaro's parents were killed in a car accident when he was young, so the dad of his best friend, Akazuki Nobuhiko, adopted him, and the two were raised like brothers. It also helped that they were both born at the same time, and their fathers were also friends.
今から19年前の日食の闇が街を覆っていた。その日食の闇の中でウヒコは生まれた。同じ頃、親友の南にも息子が生まれた。
On the day of their 19th birthday, they were taken by the evil organization known as Gorgom to be transformed into the Century Kings, Black Sun, and Shadow Moon.
聖騎王の石、キングストーンをお授けください。あとは人間としての記憶を消し去ることだ。それで改造手術は完了する。
Their father helped Kotaro escape, and he found himself capable of transforming into a grasshopper-like being, becoming the hero known as Kamen Rider Black.
Kamen Rider Black!
Minami Kotaro, dabbing before it was cool. I really like the design of Black, as it is very striking while staying simplistic, showing that sometimes simple is better. Beneath his armor appears to be organic veins, which also gives him an interesting look compared to the Riders before him and even those that have come after. Overall, the suit is black with bits of yellow and red stripes along with a metallic purple around his stomach area. The red of the eyes really pop against the black finish on his head. Another interesting aspect is that Kotaro is a brawler, so he pretty much fights with his fist and the occasional kick, compared to other riders that tended to vary between fists, ranged weapons, and swords. On the downside, this is pretty much the fighting style he uses in its entire 50-episode run, so sometimes he may feel like the fights can get a little stale when the villains aren't doing much to change it up. Fortunately, the series has a lot of monsters that do require more than just brawn to defeat them, as Kotaro will often have to use his brains as well. For example, there is a monster that is pretty strong but weak to fire, so Kotaro has to use his wits to get the monster to set some barrels of flame in order to distract the monster so he can finish him off.
そうか、これだ。奴の弱点は火だ。
With that said, what would a Kamen Rider be without a motorcycle? Well, in the case of this series, Kotaro has 3 bikes. Yes, you heard that right. He has 3 bikes. Count that. 3. First is just a regular motorcycle he rides around on. The next is Battle Hopper. Battle Hopper was created by Gorgom for the Century King to use, which Kotaro took off with during his escape. The thing that makes Battle Hopper interesting is that he appears to be a living techno-organic machine with feelings. There's one episode where the rhino monster beats the crap out of Hopper, leaving it for dead, and it heals itself. This is something that could have been really utilized later on in the series, but sadly wasn't, as Kotaro's third bike, Road Sector, seems to hog up most of the screen time after its appearance. I honestly don't understand the purpose for Road Sector at all. I get why Kotaro couldn't ride Battle Hopper outside of being transformed, but there is no reason why he couldn't do that for Road Sector. I feel like the writers had bigger plans for it, as it was briefly mentioned that it was also built for the Century King, but then the split that occurred to the writing staff during the show's production knocked those plans to the wayside. Nevertheless, Road Sector was an unnecessary addition that only took screen time away from the bike that we grew to love in the first quarter of the show. While Kotaro may be the only Kamen Rider in the show, that doesn't mean he is completely on his own as far as support is concerned. With him is Nobuhiko's sister Kyoko and girlfriend Katsumi Kida. They are played by Akemi Inoue and Ayumi Taguchi.
本当は孝太郎さんは仮面ライダーだったりしてね。
バカなこと言うなよ。
あんな怪我してるのに駆けつけるところを見ると、孝太郎さん本当に。
They may not be the most impressive supporting cast ever, but they are a likable duo who constantly remind Kotaro what he is fighting for. This also helps him move past his lament of no longer being human. Oh, and they are also there to be damsels in distress when the plot calls for it.
Of course!
In addition, there's an Interpol agent that shows up twice during the series named Ryusuke Taki and the official Kamen Rider Black fan club. Okay, they're not actually an official fan club. They're a bunch of people who were kidnapped when they were kids, experimented on to be Gorgom soldiers, and made so that they could never grow up physically. They're mentally adults, but physically kids. God, that sounds kind of stupid when I say it out loud. Let's just get back to the review.
彼らこそかつて幼い時にゴルゴムによって捕らえられ育て上げられた少年戦士たちだった。だがゴルゴムも彼らの人間性までも奪うことはできなかった。
Masaki Kiyamoto plays Ryusuke, who Garo fans may know as the singer from a few of the show's ending themes, along with being the man who played Kiba in the first season. I really like the presence Masaki brought to his role as Ryusuke, as he was able to match Kotaro in terms of personality and drive. It is a shame that he was only featured in 2 episodes, especially since his second appearance was not exactly a stellar episode. I really feel he should have appeared in one of the last episodes, if nothing else. As for the child soldiers, they were fine for what the show required of them, and it was nice that no punches were held back just because they were technically kids. On the subject of other Toku actors, Joji Nakata, Masashi Ishibashi, and Yutaka Hirose also make an appearance during the show as victims of the week. The villains. As I already mentioned, the evil organization of this series is known as Gorgom. Gorgom, not Gorgon. They're not creatures with snakes for hair. Well, they can turn people to stone though. I might have to think about this for a moment. Kicking off the villains of the show are a trio of priests named Darum, Barum, and Bishom. Their job is to make sure Nobuhiko's transformation to Shadow Moon is complete, while also using all of their resources to take over the Earth along with destroying Black in the process. In the beginning, they don't do too much outside of their introduction, yet you wouldn't want to be chased down by these individuals as they do bring a frightening presence whenever they are on screen. In the second half of the show, they receive upgrades that turn them from priests into great mutants, which is when they really start to wreak havoc on their own. Oh, and Darum is played by Shozo Iyazuki, who voices Nappa in Dragon Ball Z. Next up is a soldier who shows men can wear pink and be badass, named Virginia. Virginia was locked away in a coffin for thousands of years for his insubordination, but the current century king ordered his release so he could battle Kotaro. He brings an interesting dynamic because he wants all the glory for himself, so much so that he will often ruin the plans of the priest for his own plots and vice versa.
今度はどんな作戦を考えたんですかな。証拠りもなく貴様は黙っていろ。今回は高みの見物と参りますか。また失敗して歯ぎしりするのがオチでしょうけどね。
When it comes to beating Kotaro, Gorgom is their own worst enemy. Nevertheless, he is a credible threat as there are a lot of times Kotaro barely manages to survive his face-off, especially in the beginning. The only oddity I have with Virginia is that there is a moment where he decides to paint his face as if that is supposed to make him stronger. The monsters of the week are known as mutants. Like most Kamen Rider monsters, they are based on animals and plants. However, unlike those from other series, I have to say that these are hands down the best looking monsters of the entire franchise. They all look realistic and threatening. It also helps that Garo creator Keita Amameya designed a lot of them. My top favorite is probably the Mammoth Mutant because I love his initial appearance in the episode, as he has skin that is falling off, so you can see his bones and muscles as if he were decomposing in the middle of battle. Another of my favorites is the Goat Mutant, who establishes his own satanic cult that makes me think of the opening bits to Resident Evil 4.
Oh, La Campana. Lord Sattler. Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Other favorites include the Turtle Mutant, Anemone Mutant, Ego Mutant, the Coelacanth Mutant, Lizard Mutant, and the Mushroom Mutant. Also, the Buffalo Mutant's human form is Dyna Blue's Koji Unogi.
早速作戦に取り掛かれ。はっ。
Of course, for all of the cool mutants, there are some lame ones. There's a tapir that can see people's dreams.
悪怪人、夢は集まったか。
What is Japan's obsession with tapir monsters and dreams? This is the second show that has an episode with a tapir monster that can dig into people's dreams to see what they are dreaming about. We've got one who is harmed by sunlight in the second half of the episode, despite clearly being out in the open during the first half.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
Then we have a beetle that causes Beetlemania to occur.
Come together right now over me.
Besides monsters and the like, Gorgom has a lot of high-ranking officials, businessmen, and scientists under its wing. One of these members is a scientist named Hideyomi Kuramatsu, who is played by Ultraman Susumi Kurobe. I do find it kind of funny that last year I reviewed Kamen Rider Blade, which had Ultra 7 as a villain, and this series has Ultraman as a villain. That's kind of cool. It's like there's a Kamen Rider Ultraman connection. No? Okay. Finally, we have Shadow Moon, who takes forever to appear. But may the gods be damned if it was not well worth the wait. This is one badass hombre with some kick-ass spurs to boot. I can only imagine what it must have been like having watched the other Rider series, expecting Kotaro to finally swoop in and save Nobuhiko, who would then become his companion in their battle against Gorgom, only to not have any of that happen, and that Shadow Moon does indeed become the villain of the show. That must have been a shockingly horrifying experience. Hold on a minute. I just thought of something. Maybe that's the reason why Road Sector and Battle Hopper both exist in Kotaro's hands. They were doing a bait and switch, making you think because Kotaro has two bikes, well, he's going to save Shadow Moon, Shadow Moon's going to join him, and there they each have their own bike. I just thought about that, and that makes sense. If that is what they were planning, then wow. Road Sector did have a purpose, to bait and switch the audience. I like that. Or am I giving them too much credit? Unlike Black, Shadow Moon's design is a bit more complex as he looks like a silver and black robot with green eyes. Yet, it works extremely well. I really love the technological look of Shadow Moon as it complements the organic look of Black, for their battles truly represent nature versus technology. It is an interesting concept to put forth as there is one point where Shadow Moon needs Battle Hopper's assistance when battling Black, symbolizing that no matter how great technology is, it still needs support from nature, and even then, it may not be successful. There is so much depth between their conflict that goes beyond just being a normal Cain and Abel story. Oh, yeah. That reminds me, there are actually two more villains in the show. Shadow Moon brings in two women named Kara and Mara. They stand there? Oh, come on, gals. Do something. Ugh. Most useless Kamen Rider characters ever. And that is saying something if you have ever watched Wizard.
What are we all laughing about?
As for the actual Century King, I don't have the heart to talk about him because it is a spoiler. Just think of Sauron. The effects and music. Where do I start with this one? Because both the effects and music are simply amazing. One of the biggest draws to Black's effects work is that there are a lot of battles and plot that take place at night. This may be the show with the most night battles, which really allows the effects to shine and the cinematography to stand out among its brethren. The lighting is impeccable, as are the explosions. Of course, the daytime battles are no slouch either, as every episode feels energetic and powerful. Kotaro may only have one fighting style, but the production crew put their A game into this show. That is not to say all of the effects are perfect, as there are areas where the show does falter. There's a couple of episodes where Black's armor seems to have come undone on the backside and is going to fall off at any moment's notice. I'm not sure if this was ignored due to time constraints or just not noticed, but it can be distracting to the viewer because you may find yourself staring at the loose armor rather than the battle itself. Fortunately, it only occurs a few times, but it's still something that needs to be addressed. What never falters though is the show's soundtrack. From its outstanding opening theme that is sung by Karata himself, to the masterful background music composed by Die Ranger's Eiji Kawamura, everything gets your blood pumping throughout each well-crafted episode. There are a lot of audacious tracks that will fit the dark tones of the show, from this one to this.
Hey!
And then this. I love every single one of these, although my absolute favorite track is hands down Black Action. Oh, and even the ending theme long ago 20th century is enjoyable, although I don't feel it gets me out of the mood of the show as it is supposed to, since I am still pumped up for the show despite having been done for days. The episodes. Now, this is the area where some of you, especially if you're used to the continuous plots of the Heisei era, might find yourselves a little let down. Kamen Rider Black is a Showa series. That means you can't go into it expecting to have countless episodes of plot development with monsters that carry over for a couple of episodes. This show, like all of the other Showa series, is quite episodic. However, compared to the Sentai series of the 80s I have been reviewing, Black doesn't always rely on the same formula every episode. There are no mech battles that feel forced in, and as I previously mentioned, Kotaro has to use his head in a lot of the situations. It can have a repetitious feel to it, but rarely did I ever find myself not enjoying an episode, so I was able to overlook this. Kotaro is such an interesting character who has a lot of inner conflicts because of his situation, yet you have to look beyond the superficial aspects to really see them, as his character growth is not always apparent. No, he is not as developed as some of the most recent riders, which may be the biggest negative this series has aside from the long haul to get to Shadow Moon. Despite all this, the episodes themselves are fun, interesting, and engaging. There is maybe only one episode I truly despise, with two others I find not to be up to par with the good ones. The first features the aforementioned Buffalo Mutant, who takes over the body of a little girl to give her super strength. Now, I've actually talked about this girl before, as she has been featured in other Toei series such as Winspector and O-Ranger. The reason she is stuck in my mind for when I watch other series and can easily spot her are because of moments like this. Look at the faces she is making in these episodes. They are hysterical. Those faces have forever been ingrained in my mind, and not in a good way. The other episode I was not blown away by is one where the Black Fan Club and Kotaro have to dive into a video game that kids are getting sucked into. Sure, it has lightsaber duels and Tron-like backgrounds, but Captain N, this is not. Check it out, these are the original Star Wars kids. With that said, the episode I disdain the most is the one titled Aloha to the Assassin. It features a Hawaiian girl that has special powers, so Barum hypnotizes her into going to Japan to kill Kotaro. This leads to Kotaro losing his memories for all of 3 minutes. Have I ever mentioned how much I hate amnesia episodes before?
Because they're stupid.
Then we have the acting of the Hawaiian girl, which is just atrocious.
私、帰りたい。ハワイに帰りたい。No、私、ハワイには帰りません。No、日本は太郎おじいちゃんの生まれた国よ。
Like, what the hell? Kotaro, do you not seem to think something's wrong when she has seemed to have changed personalities? God, you're stupid. And this is the episode I mentioned that featured the return of Ryusuke, which would have been splendid had it been any other episode.
No!
Fortunately, the show has so many tremendous episodes that at times it's just hard to really pick one. There are episodes you can definitely make jokes from, like this one where the school has desks that revolt against the classroom. You could say that this classroom was designed using Common Core. I'm sorry. What the hell? I already talked about the episode with Goat Mutant Satanic Cult, and of course the Shadow Moon premiere 3-parter kicks all kinds of ass. However, I wanted to go for a standalone episode for this review, and I chose episode 32's Dream Girl Yuki. First off, this episode is nothing but 23 minutes of Bishium torturing a young girl. Add probably the wackiest mutant of all, Mushroom Mutant, into the mix, who causes Kotaro to hallucinate, and you have yourself one really trippy episode. Oh, come on, Kotaro, don't fight him. Once you actually get to know him, you'll come to learn that he's actually just a fun guy. Don't look at me again. There's so much going on here visually that will stimulate your brain, leaving you wanting more after the end credits begin to roll. Best of all, it manages to be both silly and serious concurrently. If you are unsure if Black is a show for you and want to check out an episode before diving in fully, this is the one I would recommend the most if you don't want to spoil yourself with the main plot.
Stick your cock up her ass, you motherfucking worthless cocksucker.
The movie. Kamen Rider Black has 2 movies, one of which takes place in the first half of the show, and the other in the second half. The first movie features Chameleon Mutant kidnapping children that are to be turned into mutant. Virginia makes a brief appearance in it before he is sent to his room for screwing up the priest's plan.
お許しください、創世王様。仮面ライダーを倒したい一心でつい出過ぎた真似をしてしまいました。
しばらく謹慎を命ずるとの仰せだ。
The second movie features Shadow Moon deciding that Yubari is going to be the Gorgom capital and seizes control of the city while also making a scientist build him a Metal Gear. You know, I don't really get the point of these theatrical movies. Why bother with them? They're filmed as a regular television aspect ratio, but cropped for the movie theater. Why not just make them a regular TV episode? It's not like they're really that much different in length. Anyhow, Kotaro accidentally stumbles upon the Gorgom plot, as he often does throughout most of the series. Yeah, Kotaro actually learns about the Gorgom plots by accidentally stumbling onto them. He's the worst Kamen Rider ever.
よし、今のうちにソーラービームキャノンを取り外せ。
The first one ends up being the superior of the two because Shadow Moon is extremely out of character in the second movie, acting more like a goon rather than a chosen king. There's also the fact that they just rehashed a plot point.
魂を呼び戻せ。
いでよ亡霊怪人ども、地獄の底からよみがえり、一度は倒された恨みを晴らすのだ。
Plus, the first movie has a really nice cameo by creator Kotaro Ishinomori in it.
悲鳴が聞こえる。風に乗ってな。さらわれた子供たちに違いない。
Other than that, there is no reason to watch these as they have no effect on the series' story. In the end, there is a lot to love about the show, from its overall tone to its characters. It does have some shortcomings, as those who are not used to episodic Kamen Rider series may feel thrown off, and it does take a while to get to Shadow Moon. Still, Kotaro is hands down the most badass Kamen Rider to date, and he did everything himself. Although it pains me to say this, as I am going to give Kamen Rider Black a 4 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. It's not a perfect series, but do not let the score fool you, as this is easily my second favorite Kamen Rider series thus far. It's just that it has some minor nitpicks that keep it from getting a perfect score. With that said, join me as I conclude Halloween month with one final review, if you dare.